All right, hello everybody, and welcome to this day 2 of the Nordic webinar session on Workspace ONE. If you didn't catch the session yesterday, we'll be posting the sessions all together next week and send a link out for the recordings. So you feel free to share them among your colleagues. With us today, we have Helle Mør from VMware. Yep. End user computing specialist, I think, right? Yep. Who's going to take us through the modern management part of Workspace ONE. I just want to point have you point your attention to the chat panel in the bottom of the screen and the Q&A section as well. Once you join, I mean, you have a great opportunity to ask questions directly and get them answered right away. So please feel free to post them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll pick them up as we go along. If you want to ask them live, just raise your hand and we'll unmute you. So yeah, with that said, let's get on with it.
Yes, and thank you, Thijs, for introducing me. And for those of you who speak Danish, well, this is a Nordic seminar, so I will be doing this in English. And obviously, I will start by sharing my screen. Just get the right one, this one, and share. There we go. Okay, so can everybody see the correct version of my screen?
Yeah, we see the slides.
Perfect, and not the presenter view. That's
Nope.
good. Okay, so today, well, I'm Helle. I am a solutions engineer for VMware on our end user computing products, and I'm based in VMware, Denmark, but I also cover Finland actually, and I do have a lot of contact with my Nordic counterparts in Norway and Sweden. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I will forward it to the correct person, or Thijs will do that. Today we are talking about modern management, and you had a session yesterday with Ben that was all about user experience. Today we're taking it a step further into our Unified Endpoint Management solution, Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management. So modern management it is. So if we look at Workspace ONE and the digital workspace, we'll just give you a very quick technology overview of what we believe is in the complete digital workspace to make a full solution for you and your customers. We think obviously that you need to look at access and at Unified Endpoint Management. So for Workspace ONE standard, this is what you would have in that package. You will have secure access management services from our Workspace ONE Access Management or Access. You'll have Unified Endpoint Management and Windows 10 macOS MDM management in here. And if you want to build upon that and have proper PC Lifecycle Management and for Windows 10 and Mac, then you would need to go on to Workspace ONE Advanced, where some of these features are built in, where you can have some of the more developed features for this part. And then obviously you'll have Workspace ONE Enterprise, where you can go to look at shared virtual desktops, and you'll have the analytics for mobile and desktop, automation, intelligence, and vulnerability management that comes into this. And the shared virtual desktops, virtual apps, and just-in-time management comes with the Horizon component that we will be covering tomorrow. So today we will be focusing on Windows 10 management or modern management, not only Windows 10, but extending also to Macs and other part. Obviously, around this whole digital workspace, you'd have stuff like Workspace ONE Security, where we can add intrinsic security that we will be talking about Thursday, to my to my memory, and Workspace ONE Assist, which I will touch on today. So this is the technology overview of the VMware complete digital workspace. Today, it's Modern Management Day. So I will be talking real quick because we have a lot to go through. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A, as Thijs mentioned, and either Ben will pick up on them, or I will try to see if I can take them as we go. If you raise your hand, Thijs will let you ask your question live. There is a glossary of terms here. I'm not going to go through them, just all of them, but I am going to pick out one and say the CSP in the middle of the right side of the screen is Configuration Service Provider, and I will be talking a little bit about that today. Another term that you might not be familiar with is COPE, so Corporate Owned Personally Enabled Device. Apart from that, I think most of these terms should be well known, otherwise you'll have the slides to look them up later. So if we start with a bit of learning, where have we come from? So it all started with mobile device management, MDM. So it started perhaps with bring your own device, and then we could manage those, and it actually moved to EMM, and I'm going to take you through that. So bring your own, you could put mobile device management on here, which basically meant you could put a PIN code on and stuff like that. From that, it went into mobile application management, MAM, where we could perhaps start managing a few applications in there, and then mobile content management and email management, where we could start managing a little bit more on the device with regards to what was on there and the content and also the emails, for instance. And then that was called Enterprise Mobility Management, EMM. And that is a big part of the Workspace ONE solution, but the Workspace ONE solution goes further than that. So by defining EMM, it would be like MXM, so MAM, MCM, MEM, all of that. MDM takes care of hardware and OS management. It takes care of restrictions, location, stuff like that. MAM is all about application delivery, app wrapping, app config, and also data loss prevention. And then you have content management that looks at data and information management security. And that is what is defining EMM. If we look at PCLM, so PC Lifecycle Management, including Mac management, well, then it consists of stuff that looks very much like this. So you have hardware, you have an operating system, you have applications, you have personalization, and then you have policies. Today, that is taken care of by a lot of different tools. So you would look at SCCM, group policies, Jam for Mac, Norton Ghost to create images. Some of you might still use Altiris, which is now called Symantec, I assume, PowerShell and other scripts and registry settings. That's all part of PC Lifecycle Management, and these tools are all used to get there to handle those 5 different points in there. So what is Unified Endpoint Management that we talk about all the time? Well, Unified Endpoint Management is when you unify Enterprise Mobility Management and PCLM, PC Lifecycle Management. So this is where you take your EMM that we just talked about and your PCLM, and you combine them into one tool that defines Unified Endpoint Management, because you have one tool to rule them all. So you can manage all your devices that has some kind of mobility with one tool. So Workspace ONE UEM, if you want to look more into that, there's a hands-on lab here that you can look at. It's called Workspace ONE UEM Getting Started. And for those of you not familiar with hands-on labs, it's a free service that VMware has. It was developed for VMworld, and it will be running again this virtual VMworld coming up next week. The hands-on labs are there all year for you to test out our solutions and to go through a guided lab on our software, almost all of our software. So Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Manager. Well, what we do in here is that we onboard, we configure, we support, and we secure devices. All of the devices we talked about earlier, Apple devices, Google devices, and Windows devices. and we handle all of these inside Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Manager. It's a set of unique technologies to manage the device lifecycle. So first we have the onboarding. How do you get the device on board? It's this very, very streamlined enrollment process that we have. And people who have enrolled one device will be very familiar with that process. And it looks very similar across all our devices. Then obviously we can configure all these devices with settings and policies and layout controls, integrations, any configuration you can come up with almost. And we have obviously security in here, endpoint security and DLP. Okay, my phone is ringing, that's rather annoying. And obviously we have device or enterprise wipe that we can look at on the security side. Endpoint security will be part of Thursday's presentation. I'm not going to go into that today very much. And then, of course, we manage and support the users and the devices. So it's not only about the devices, it's also about the users. We have insights and analytics with our intelligence that gives you a very, very deep knowledge on your devices and what's going on those. There is obviously the Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management portal that gives the users self-service, a great deal of self-service depending on what you allow them to handle themselves. And then we have remote management. So that's all part of Workspace ONE. There are 4 hosting models of Workspace ONE. So there's the shared SaaS that most of our customers are using. That is a very, very straightforward SaaS solution. Then there is managed hosted, where you get your own hardware in a managed data center, all managed by VMware. Dedicated mode, where you get dedicated hardware, and then obviously on premises. So you have these 4 different hosting models you can look at. Some of them are through your normal service provider, some directly through VMware, or you can choose to have on premises if you have the people to keep an installation like that up to date. But think about that. What we see the most is shared SaaS. We see lots and lots and lots of our customers, also those with many devices running off of shared SaaS. So onboarding, if you want to learn more about onboarding, there is another hands-on lab here, and you will get the slides, so you can look it up at the recording, so you don't have to put notes down on what these different hands-on labs are, or you can just log into hands-on labs and browse through it. So onboarding, well, we do management based on ownership and use cases. So you can have different ownerships of these devices. You can have a personally owned device or a company owned device. So myself, I have a copy. So it's a company owned, but also a private used device. I use it together with my private stuff, and I have it. It actually is more like a bring your own device. I chose it myself, and then it's enrolled as a employee owned device, which means that I have work apps and I have access to everything, but I also have my personal stuff there. And should it need wiping, then VMware can wipe everything work related off of that device, and it's just a personal device. Then you have the business only use and the rugged devices. Those are fully managed devices. Company-owned, fully managed devices. So business-only use, you have all your business applications in there, and you're not really supposed to use that for private applications and other things. So that's that device is under full management. And the same with the rugged devices. This could be a separate device or other devices. These devices need full management as well. And then you have the corporate owned personally enabled devices, where you have a which is fully managed, but with work profile. It's very easy to do with Samsung devices, but we also do that with Apple devices or other devices. There are multiple shades of device management. So if you go and look at device management, well, you have the first one, which is just containerized apps. So you push out a containerized app that is managed. Then there is the registered mode, where you go into Workspace ONE and register your device. It doesn't mean that it's under full management, but it's registered, and you will have easier access to diverse applications through Intelligent Hub and Workspace ONE Access. Then there is the OS partitioned devices, where you can use like iOS user enrollment or Android enterprise work profiles. So you kind of split the device into a personal part and a business part. And then, of course, the fully managed devices that is fully enrolled in MDM and are under full control, as you will see here. So you have the different device management types over here: Hub, MAM, user partitioned, MDM. And then you can see here how the level of management there is on the actual device, and the level of the security, the level of experience, and the level of privacy. And in some businesses, privacy is really, really important. So you will only have, people will only register their device. That heightens the security, because you can't have identity-based access and device attestation, meaning that you know who the user is and what the device is, and you know that the device is not jailbroken or other in other ways harmful. That means you can give people access to stuff like software as a service and behind firewall web apps with Workspace ONE Access. And if you look further down, MAM only, well, it gives you application security. The privacy level is high because it leaves the device alone. You have the user partitioned device, where you can say the device management is limited, but you do have application security. And here you have all applications available. You need Workspace ONE Access in this scenario for the single sign-on. And then, of course, you have the full management, where you have the security is over device and app security. You have access or the user experience is all apps and services. And then you have a privacy app that will give the user transparency into the level of management and monitoring that's going on with the device, which is something you as practitioners, you configure that level, and the privacy app will reflect that configuration. Provisioning methods enabled with Workspace ONE. Well, we have the very, very easy onboarding of devices in Workspace ONE. You have the Unified Endpoint Management, obviously, and then you have the onboarding mechanisms, which could, for Windows devices, be out-of-the-box enrollment, or it could be manual enrollment or hub/browser enrollment, where you actually download the hub or enroll through the browser. You can have a token or an NFC bump, or you can use factory provisioning or a QR code. You can even email a link to people. So there are so many different ways of onboarding. Just find yourself the one that fits your company, and look at how to roll that out to your users. So out-of-the-box enrollment is very relevant if we're talking Windows 10. So out-of-the-box enrollment will onboard devices really quickly and without all the IT hassle that you normally see. I used to work for a pharmaceutical company quite close to where I sit right now. They would have an IT department that would order computers home, and then they would have them put up in a room, 20 in a row, and they would use Norton Ghost or something to put an image on those computers, and then they would pack them down, bring them up to the users, unpack them, take all the cardboard back to the IT department because the users didn't want them in the office. And they actually hired a student, which happened to be my son, just to take care of the cardboard and the styrofoam to handle the garbage that comes from having that many computers go through your service desk. And later on, obviously, that student was also able to help with the actual ghosting of the images and stuff, but they needed a student several hours a week just to handle all the cardboard and styrofoam and plastics, and to make sure that was put in the right containers. So out of the box enrollment, instead of having that going through the service desk, send it directly to the users, directly out to the user department. And then you don't need to have that space and resources in the IT department to deal with that. And you can free up those resources for other stuff. So enterprise secure and consumer simple, that is our mantra for amongst other things, easy onboarding, but also for the entire user experience. And I'm sure you looked a lot at the onboarding processes yesterday in user experience, but in the ideal scenario, you would have 0 to working with minimal user interaction. So you could put in these different things. You enter staging Wi-Fi credentials, wait for enrollment apps and profiles, open app, etc. But how do we actually get there? Well, to get there, you have to pre-register the device. This could be a mobile device or a Windows device or a Mac or anything. Then you have to enroll with the vendor's device enrollment program. You can skip screens or you can stage the device. And then you would have to push applications that you have already purchased with that specific vendor or internal applications. You would need to enable identity manager integration. You would also need to configure single sign-on profiles and obviously deliver certificates and configure per app tunneling, amongst other things. These are some of the things that takes you to a place where you can have the easy onboarding with your customers. So in VMware, it works like that. I just recently got a new Mac. It was shipped directly to me, well, which is not quite true because it had been opened in the IT department because they need to put a small sticker on it for some reason, which is probably not very needed, but somebody has a system that requires that little sticker still. But apart from that, it's a brand new Mac. I open it up. It's not configured from VMware. It's just registered in the device enrollment program. I authenticate using my VMware credentials, and then it's enrolled in Workspace ONE. And it's really quick, and it's really very easy to handle. So if we look at out of the box enrollment, you get this brand new device. You have the vendor device service. The device, when it comes online, it syncs with the vendor enrollment platform. The vendor service then directs it to Workspace ONE. So this would typically be Apple or Google. Workspace ONE prompts the user to enter corporate credential, and Workspace ONE configures the device based on policies. The device is enrolled, configured, and secure, and the user is ready to go. We all know that. We've been doing that for years. And we can do exactly the same thing with desktop class devices. So you get a device, brand new device. It could be Apple, it could be Windows. The user turns on and enables the device and connects to Wi-Fi. Device syncs with vendor enrollment platform, and the vendor service directs the device to Workspace ONE, etc. Workspace ONE prompts the user to enter corporate credential, and then Workspace ONE configures the device based on policies. The device is enrolled and secure. And this is exactly what we do at VMware, and it literally takes less than an hour to get a new device. It is such a bliss. Before, when you got a new Windows device, it would, especially if you're placed in Denmark off the corporate network, it would be kind of nightmare because you'd have to roll it up and then you'd have to get it on some kind of network where you could connect, and it wasn't at all ready when you got it. Now you power it on, you can configure it over whatever Wi-Fi you're at. You might need to authenticate using Secure ID to make sure that you actually identify yourself as who you are. And that's it, you're up and running. It's so nice. So traditional PC Lifecycle Management, it's very high touch, it's expensive, and it's not very scalable. People are doing customized OS, company apps, user-specific apps, and policies, and that is all locked down, and that has to go to the devices. So if you look at over-the-air management, well, it's secured, it's real-time, and it's over the air. So it doesn't have to be on the network. It's not locked down to the LAN. The Unified Endpoint Management or modern management approach to this is that you can do this over the air. So you get a base OEM OS, which is preloaded on the device, and then you boot it up, let the users log in, and Workspace ONE takes care of Workspace ONE and Microsoft updates or Apple updates, takes care of the device and configures the device, puts apps and policies and OS updates on that device, and you have a secure device real time and over the air. This is really what it looks like. So you start up, this is a Mac, you start it up, you log in, this is Peter Parker, he logs in on the device. The device is now connecting, you enable location service, the device is connecting to Apple. You create a local computer account for your user, and then the device is now communicating with Apple. Apple is telling it that it needs to be set up using Workspace ONE, and now you get to a point where you're actually setting up, and it's speeded up obviously. But here the device is already enrolled. Workspace ONE is saying, hey, you have a brand new machine. Why don't you open Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub and have a look? This is a bit of an older version of Intelligent Hub, but the functionality is similar. And you open up Hub and you can see what applications has already been installed on your device. You can actually start searching for applications. You can use the Intelligent Hub to single sign on into some of your software as a service applications, such as Outlook in Office 365. So you can log in and everything is already in there for you pre-configured. So you can log in with single sign-on because you already got the certificate on this device. So that's what it looks like. And this is what we do at VMware. Literally, this is so easy. So Hub will keep giving you notifications. It will tell you that you have a new application. You have Slack installed already, but VMware prefers to have your Slack managed. Would you want to have your Slack managed? And then it will actually take your Slack installation and make sure that that Slack installation is now managed by VMware. So literally, this is what we do, and it works really, really well in our environment where we have people spread all over the world, and especially in these times where people are sitting at home. We have similar zero-touch enrollment for Android, which is the fully management device enrollment method, where you can purchase devices via a zero-touch vendor or reseller, and Arrow will know where to find those. The device will then be automatically registered and enrolled. Apple, again, you can use a device enrollment program from Apple, or a Business Manager, I think it's called nowadays. And Workspace ONE will configure the device over the air. It includes macOS, iOS, and iPad OS. So, and it's really, really that easy. You can also have out-of-the-box enrollment for Windows 10. Which is for fully managed devices as well. You can integrate with Windows out of the Windows out of the box experience, Autopilot, and Azure AD for the complete seamless onboarding of a Windows device. Very, very similar to that of the Mac. But we can take it one step further with Windows 10. So we can actually take it to factory provisioning, and there is also a hands-on labs on factory provisioning. Traditional factory provisioning model would include the manufacturer, Dell in this case. They would have to build the PC asset tag, asset report, and BIOS settings. This all costs money. They would have to ship it, and then you would get it to the IT department, and this is where my son would sit and unwrap it and take care of all the cardboard and the plastic and the styrofoam. So the warranty starts here, and it has to be received. You have to put an SCCM image on it or whatever, patch, install applications, etc. And you'd have to find also the equipment that goes to it. And then you'd have to ship it again. Everything here costs money and time. This might take a month. This might take 3 weeks, depending on how efficient you are in your company. Then at the desktop side, where it goes to the customer, desktop engineer, You would have to deliver, physically install, user apps, data migration, trouble tickets, etc., etc. You have to update your CMDB, and this is what I think VMware still does, because there's a small sticker on my Mac, and I don't think they have to do that. But then I'll discuss that with our own IT department. And then again, it goes to the end user that will have to request licensed apps, and that will take time. So the staging takes a long time and the deployment takes a long time. If we look at how this could be done, with Dell, we have this portal for factory provisioning, where you can go in and look at your onboarding methods. You can choose Dell factory provisioning. Other hardware vendors have some solutions that are quite similar to this, but not as integrated into Workspace ONE as the Dell factory provisioning. And for the Dell factory provisioning, you define, for instance, your Active Directory. It's Azure Active Directory Premium in this case. And you define your UBI configuration. Do you want to show or hide the EULA page and all those settings down here? And also the system configuration. Then you go and create the local user, define what the local user should be, and all these settings you put in here. And it's on a website, it's online. You go and put it in through Workspace ONE. So you actually just from Workspace ONE access this whole thing, and then you go to Workspace ONE enrollment, define your enrollment server and your staging user, and you're good to go. And then you define what applications you want to have pre-seated in that device, because Office 2016 Pro Plus is a rather large application. So if you're planning on shipping this to an end user that sits at home at the end of some lousy internet, well, this might be a good idea to go and look at Office 365 local installation here and put that on already from the factory. Also Google Chrome, Adobe Reader applications, you know that all your users would need. And then you have created a package, and a provisioning package, and you can name it. And from that, you just, when you order your factory provisioned laptops for your end users, you just order one with the correct provisioning package for that user, which means that Dell is now building the PC provisioning, the image tagging, reporting, and doing the BIOS settings. They have to do that. But this whole part is all gone. And it goes directly to the end user, where it's delivered. The user self-install because it's really, really easy. There might be some file share migration, trouble tickets, etc. And you are ready to go. That means it's a lot cheaper for you than to have to go through this whole service desk step, and a lot less costs on this. So if we're going to look at what we can actually do over the air, configuration-wise, if we look at Windows 10, well, we configure stuff based on management APIs. That's what modern management is all about. And there are multiple layers of security to keep your device and data protected. So first of all, we can use, obviously we look at application lifecycle management, at security management, and asset tracking. And then we look at stuff like, Wi-Fi settings. So if you look at the APIs, we can do Wi-Fi settings, restrictions, OS updates, application deployment, and data loss prevention. We can also manage that over the air, access management and encryption, location data ownership, and software inventory in these different categories. And if we are to look at it just really quick, well, what you do is that you select a platform to start. It could be any of these platforms. These are the ones that are most commonly used: Android, Apple iOS, Mac, Apple TV, Windows Rocket, Windows, and Android Legacy. And you will see in a minute that when we go into Windows configuration, you will actually have different options in there. So if we look at iOS and what it looks like to add a new profile and put restrictions on, this is what it looks like. And surprised, if we look at Android, it looks exactly the same. Obviously, there are different features you can configure because that's given from the vendor or from the OS vendor. We're not in charge of that. We're just managing whatever can be managed from that vendor, but it looks very similar. So for Windows, it looks very similar as well. you can go in here from Workspace ONE and add a new Windows desktop profile and configure everything just like that. The restrictions look slightly different because Windows needs some more information. But then again, we can also manage Windows 10 with CSP, so all the nitty-gritty configuration details that you could see with Android and iOS, well, we get by them looking at configuration service providers, which is the new way of managing Windows. So Workspace ONE has the user and the device configuration payloads. You have restrictions, Wi-Fi, wallpaper, whatever. Everything is done by CSP, which is, well, basically it's XML, right? So you do registry settings that is sent to your Windows 10 computer, and it's all just registry settings and files that we put on the computer, which means that group policies is going to be so last year, and so is domain join. And now you might think, I don't think I can have computers that are not domain joined, but hey, you can. I have a customer that has a lot of consultants that are working outside the company most of the time. Visiting customers, they have a Windows 10 device, and those devices are per default considered contaminated by the company, and they are never allowed on the network. They're not allowed on the domain either, because actually by adding a computer to a domain, you're giving it rights to do stuff. It can communicate to other computers in that domain. It can communicate to the domain controller. It's actually a security risk unless you know exactly what's going on with that computer and where it has been. Group policies, well, that's depending on domain join. But what we can do is that we can completely get rid of group policies, or we can take your group policies and deliver them with Workspace ONE UEM if required. But the new way of doing this is using configuration service providers, and you can get into very nitty-gritty details with those. So best-in-class PC Lifecycle Management transformation is what we believe that we deliver with Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Manager. You have the onboarding, you have the configuration, you have OS updates, you have software, and you have security, so software deployment, obviously. And we can do that for all these different devices. So the onboarding, just to sum up, will give you a ready-to-work experience out of the box deployment. It can coexist with existing PCLM software, and you can do factory provisioning. For configuration, well, we can do the standard baseline and GPOs, MDM configuration, asset tracking, and BIOS and firmware management, especially for Dell devices. OS updates, we can handle OS updates. We can give you granular control back on that, and you don't need to use WSUS or SCCM. You can use Microsoft Update and we'll still give you control, or you can use Apple Update, and we also let you let you look at patch analysis. So with intelligence, we can look at your devices in an intelligent way. You can subscribe to CVE, and then you get a list of malicious day zero exploits out there, and you can actually proactively patch and say, okay, I know there's a new exploit out there. I know that Microsoft has put a patch out to fix that specific CVE. I will just proactively patch all my Windows 10 computers to protect them, or all my Macs, or whatever it is, to protect them. So that is kind of what you can do with OS updates and patch management. Well, for software, you can have your own company app store with single sign-on. We can handle Windows 32 application. We can do the whole management. If you are familiar with SCCM and Altiris, it's not going to look that different. It's technology, you know, because it's all down to you knowing the software package. And if you know your applications, you can deliver them using SCCM, using Altiris, or using Workspace ONE UEM, and then have one less tool to manage. So that's kind of how it works. We have peer-to-peer distribution of software, and obviously an application inventory. And the security part of it, device health attestation, data protection, obviously we have all that in place. Sensors and compliance are in there. and BitLocker management. And now you're saying, but those devices, you just told me they were not on the domain. That's correct. We can handle the BitLocker keys also for those devices not on the domain. So should the user forget their password to a BitLocker encrypted device, we can actually provide them with that BitLocker key to enable them to unlock their device. So what did VMware IT do? I have talked about this in the beginning, but VMware IT's journey to Windows Modern Management, well, you can see here, we used Workspace ONE in coexistence to transition 15,000 devices to Windows 10 Modern Management. So phase one was coexist the easy workloads and then keep the traditional process for the harder workloads. So the imaging, the in-place upgrades, the software distribution, etc. was kept traditional, but we used modern management for BitLocker, for Workspace ONE App Catalog, for networking configuration, etc. And then phase two, we moved all workloads to modern management. So we moved the provisioning factory to user, the network configuration or the protocols configuration, VPN and certificates, GPOs and CSP. So we're doing all this because, well, we formerly had a CEO who would say that we had to eat our own dog food. And then he changed it because dog food doesn't sound so nice. So we have a mantra in VMware saying you should drink your own champagne. And how did we actually go from phase one to phase two? Well, we do have a tool for SCCM coexistence where we can actually take all of those software packages you have in your on-premises PCLM, and then we can use the tool called Airlift to take those software packages, for instance, and move them into Workspace ONE. So we have a flexible way where you can move your devices little by little, having SCCM and having Workspace ONE, and then move all your end user devices and transition them to Workspace ONE Modern Management. And then you might ask, why would I want to do that? Well, everything is moving to the cloud, and so is SCCM. It's just not a cloud version of SCCM, is it? It's just SCCM now in the cloud, and you still need quite a bit of infrastructure to do this. With Workspace ONE, you actually don't need that infrastructure. You need a bit of infrastructure, obviously, on premises if you want to have your software packages on-prem. Otherwise, you can store them in the cloud, and you can use cloud distribution for your software, such as Akamai, meaning you don't have to put your money into hardware on-site or at local offices containing all these applications. So how do we manage applications with modern management? And I am aware of the time, and I'm a little sorry that it's taking a little longer than I anticipated, but that's what it is when you present in English. It's not that far to the end, so don't worry. So configure, deploy, and manage applications with Workspace ONE. Well, we have a unified application catalog. It can contain internal apps, public apps, purchased apps, web apps, or remote apps. And public apps, obviously from an app store, purchase apps from an app store, web apps, well, from anywhere. Remote apps could be applications delivered by Horizon or Horizon apps. Or if you already have a huge Citrix installation, you can start out using Citrix apps in there, and then you can transition to Horizon should you want to do that. We have single sign-on, application configuration, auto on-demand deployment, and conditional access policies, all from the application catalog here, or Workspace ONE Access. And it looks exactly the same on a Mac, on Windows, on iOS, on Android. So for the user, no matter what device they have, it's a very, very, very streamlined experience. Then we have a lot of Workspace ONE built-in applications. We have obviously our intelligent hub that creates the unified onboarding, the app catalog with single sign-on, notifications and actions and people search. And then we have various other applications that will make your life easier, such as Boxer, our mail client, web, which is a secure browser, content which will be enable you to deliver content to devices and for end users to take content offline. We also have a Smartfolio that will publish managed content. So for like pilots that would need to have documentation to go along with them. We have Notebook that will handle your Outlook notes and tasks and flagged emails. We have Send that edits files in Office. Cards, well, a business card scanner, if you want one of those, well, we have it. VMware Verify, which is our multi-factor authentication. It's in the future more built into Hub. Right now, it's a separate application. You have our derived credentials manager, PFD, that can help you manage derived credentials and authentication certificates. And then we have a Tunnel. That is our secure network tunnel that will, on MDM style workloads, create a per application VPN, which is a true per application VPN, and not as other solutions in the market that has a per app VPN, which is a VPN activated by a specific app, but then you have a device VPN. This is actually a per app VPN that will be able to work with native apps and browsers, or our apps and browsers, and also give a very, very seamless user experience, because the users don't have to think about should they be on VPN or not. So deploying native Windows apps, this is actually a small video of how to deploy Windows apps. So you go to applications and books, and you add an application. Oh, well, in here we have already added the application. You choose an application, and then you assign it to either a group of users or a group of computers. In this situation, I think we're going to assign it to Windows 10 computers. Obviously, you give the distribution a name, so Google Chrome, and then you assign it to Windows 10 desktops. You specify when the deployment begins, and you specify the delivery method, should it be automatically or on demand, and then you assign it, you add the assignment, set a priority, and then you publish it. And that's it. And then you actually have that application assigned to end users, and then you go to the desktop, and then you can just wait to see if Google Chrome is actually going to come to that desktop anytime soon, and there it is. And that is really how that works. And then the user immediately has access to Google Chrome. This is another way of doing it. It's user initiated. The user goes into the Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub, requests Adobe, and says, I want to install Adobe Reader, and the user is requesting that, and Workspace ONE Hub will ask for Adobe Reader to be installed. So it's an on-demand installation, and the user gets Adobe Reader. And that's basically how that works. And Adobe Reader is there, and it's immediately working, and it will be in the start menu and everything. So that's how you can deploy access or applications for Windows 10. This was only the deployment. To create the package, it's very easy as well. If you want to play around with that or look at that, please contact us, and we'll make a special session for you on that. We can also handle Chrome devices, so we enable all enterprise application on Chrome devices. So if you have Chrome devices, we can help you with those as well. We can provide access to applications, cloud, web, native, virtual, to deliver a consistent end user experience and ensure that your teams are productive anywhere, anytime, on any device. Support. Well, people need support regardless of how cool Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Manager is. They will need support at some point. And what we can do is we can use Workspace ONE Access to help with that. So we have an employee here who is unable to access a business critical app, so they contact IT Help Desk. Well, the IT Help Desk responds and assesses the situation and decides that they need to create a remote support session. Workspace ONE Assist app is already preloaded onto the employee's device and ready to use. And so through Workspace ONE Access, Help Desk launches remote sessions with device from Workspace ONE console, and employee accepts a privacy notification to start the session. This step is really important. In Denmark, it's by law. I think it is in many countries that have to accept that. And then help desk remotely accesses the device and fixes the issue. And I have a short video here. I'm just going to go through it a little bit quick because, well, you have the user, you have a help desk finding the user, finding the device. In this situation, it's a Mac and not a Windows device. They go down to remote management, and then they check that they can actually get to the device. Then they launch and define whether they want to share screen, manage files, or do a remote shell. And in this case, they want to share the screen, so they're sending a message. Then they look at the device configuration, and now we go over to the user. And the user sees assist popping up, and then assist you need to accept, and then you need to get the PIN code from support that was on the previous screen. You type in that PIN code, and then you can access and share your screen. And now support has access and can do whatever they need to troubleshoot on this device. And they are doing quite a bit of troubleshooting in this video, and I'm going to jump to where they actually need to get access to local files. So now they have to ask the user, can I get access to files? And the user actually has to accept that. So help desk can access the files and continue their troubleshooting. And then they continue troubleshooting. And now they need access to remote shell. They need to have approval from the user to get that access as well. And now support can actually go into the remote shell and do that troubleshooting bit they have to do. And then obviously the user is told when the session is over and is disconnected. And at all times, the user have the option of disconnecting the session. So this is how remote access works. And a very short demo now on creating, and this is just to wrap it up because I talked about the CSPs, and I have a very, very short demo on creating these configuration service providers. So you can actually go to VMwarePolicyBuilder.com. You need to log in with your My VMware, and then you can choose your Windows version. Down here, say, okay, I might want to use Windows 1903, or I want to go 2004 because I'm that brave. And then down here, you have all the different things you can configure using the CSPs. And there's a lot of things. So if we go to say 1903, one of the points I could choose was clean PC. And then you can go and configure it, or you can just go and you can take the XML part over here. You can take this whole thing and copy it, or you can use the built-in configure and copy functionality in here, where you can also get it. And then you go back to your Workspace ONE that I have pre-opened. In this picture, I'm going to do a Windows configuration. So I'm going into Windows. It's not Windows Phone, and it's not Windows 7. It's a Windows desktop, and it's a device profile. And actually here, I start by giving it a name, and then a description. And then you can choose the deployment type, managed, auto, always, or whatever, if you have any exclusions. And then you have all these different payloads that you can put in there, but you can also take those custom settings, and you can just take that thing I just created and paste it right in here under install settings. And then you just save and publish, and you're good to go. You need to do I didn't put the remote setting in here. But that's basically how you could go about doing the CSP configurations. So the Policy Builder is a tool that's really cool because you get all those options in there, and you don't have to sit and find those XML settings yourself. So by that, I think I've basically used up most of the time, and I can see there's a lot of things going on in the chat. So are there anybody who wants to put up a question here? I'm going to just stop sharing here and look at the chat. I think Ben has been really busy. Have you got some kind of system to monitor when customer's account is locked or something like that? So our IT support can send and SMS and call. Well, actually, if a device is locked, the user themselves can obviously unlock it. They can go to a self-service portal as well, and they can, from there, they can handle it. That they can mainly actually remote lock it. But with Workspace ONE Access, you would, as Ben writes in here, you would very rarely be locked out, because it's a way of logging in using a certificate remotely, single sign-on, so you probably not get to that point. I can see that Ben has taken care of most of the questions. Well, will the slides also be shared? Thijs, I assume, yes?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll share the presentation and we'll share the slides along with it.
I might take the demo videos out of the slide deck, because that makes it humongous. Those slides with the videos, I probably want to take out.
We'll share them as PDFs anyway, so that way they'll be much smaller.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think we are about the top of the hour almost. So thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you to the attendees for hanging in there. I just want to mention, since this is both a reseller and cloud provider webinar, that as a reseller and cloud provider, it's actually fairly easy to get going with selling all this goodness to your customers and your and getting them on board. Obviously, there'll be an on-premise version, but it's preferred to sell this as software as a service solution. So if you are at all interested and can see potential for your customers, don't hesitate to reach out to your local Aero team, and we'll help you get onboarded to the solution and enable you for selling this to your customers. So with that, I look forward to see you all again tomorrow for the next day 3 of the Workspace ONE. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Helle, and see you guys tomorrow.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.